No More Inspire Thee, so by Emily Bronte. So as you mentioned already, in terms of the time period of this is the Romantic period, but it's also the Victorian period. So all the things we've spoken about so far, about the Industrial Revolution, the change of society, about nature, all those things apply to this poem. When we talk about earth, we're talking about nature, but we're also talking about God. The idea that spirituality and God is in the natural world. And like William Wordsworth said, if we put ourselves into nature, then we will be connected with God. So this is all again about connection. So even though this poem is about faith, it's also about nature, so you can use it with those ones as well. To be inspired means to have some sort of belief slash faith or a goal. So something that you believe in. Now if you're a religious person, if you're a spiritual person, you live your life on earth knowing that one day you'll get to go to heaven and then you'll be rewarded for your good deeds. The poem is about what happens if you lose your faith. It begins with two questions. Shall earth no more inspire thee, thou lonely dreamer now? Now this is a really great little oxymoron, right? So to be lonely means to be isolated. We spoke about loneliness with Burr's You're Never Lonely. So to be isolated or to feel lost. To be a dreamer is to be somebody with imagination or hope. So what happens when you lose your faith, right? When you become this lonely dreamer? Since passion may not fire thee, shall nature cease to bow. Now fire, so please circle fire. Fire is another way for talking about being inspired. Think about firing up an oven or firing up an engine, right? It means to start. So a passion is something that you love. Now notice it's very, very vague. It could be many, many, many things. But when the things you love in life no longer interest you, what happens? Shall nature cease to bow? Right? So cease is to stop. To bow is to lower itself. Right? So it's very confusing, this idea. But like, I like to think of it like this. Is there a way, are you fixable? Can nature give you back your spirituality? Now notice here the rhyming. So thee, now, thee, bow. Okay, so we've got some cross rhyme. So in the way that this dreamer is lost, the rhyme is kind of separated. So the rhyme is there still, but it's kind of separated from each other. Okay. Thy mind is ever moving. So I'll underline this, please. Ever moving. There's an idea here of being restless, right? If your mind is always moving, then you can't stop thinking, right? So you can't stop thinking. So if you're having like anxiety or depression or bad thoughts, those thoughts are always there. They never stop. They never give you a break. In regions dark to thee. Now darkness could be things that are very negative. It could also be the unknown. So if you are in the dark, it means that they are unknown. So maybe this person perhaps has questions. Questions such as, is there a God? I'll put some down here, right? So is there a God? Maybe. Or is there an afterlife? But kind of these big questions that really bother people, like they want to understand them. Recall is useless roving. Come back and dwell with me. So this is what we call an imperative. Please write this down. An imperative is a command. So this is the speaker saying to the person, stop messing around, stop questioning, come back to me. And to dwell. To dwell means to live, to stay. I know my mountain breezes. Underline mountain, please. I know my mountain breezes enchant and soothe thee still. I know my sunshine pleases, despite thy wayward will. Now, I quite like this here, right? So, I know. There's a sense here of confidence, right? That nature can give somebody spirituality, which is, of course, what they used to believe, right? So, you've got mountains, you've got sunshine, you've got words like enchant and soothe. So, these words mean to feel positive, right? As well as pleasing. Now, if we have a bunch of words that have the same meaning, we call it a semantic field of positive language. Okay? To soothe is to make someone feel happy. To enchant is to give them a sense of magic and belief. Sunshine, please. Despite thy wayward will. If you're wayward, it means you're lost. If your will is your dreams. So I know that I can bring you back, right? I know that through the mountains and the sun, all that stuff will bring you back to believing in me again. When day with evening blending. Now, when day blends with the evening, that is the dusk. That is the sunset. So when the sun goes down, or when the sun sinks from the summer sky, so the sinking is the sunset, I've seen thy spirit bending. So your spirit is your soul, your beliefs. Now to bend means to, before something break, it bends. So the bending means to doubt. Right? Now the sun going down is also a metaphor for death. So when the sun goes down, stay quiet please. When the sun goes down, what is really talking about is death. So when people die, when I've seen people die, I've seen your soul bending. I've seen your spirit start to question or doubt me, right? Because of course they're talking about God and nature. In fond idolatry. So idolatry, or an idol, is to worship others. So the first rule, when Moses came down with the 10 commandments, the first one is, thou shalt have no other idols. So thou shalt have no other gods other than me. So I've seen you start to question me. I've seen you start to doubt. People often do, right? Religious people go, if there's a God, how could they let this terrible thing happen? So it's definitely questioning here. I've watched thee every hour. Okay, so there's an idea here about eternity, or sort of like God, I guess like godly knowledge. So the idea is that God knows all. I've seen thee, I've watched thee. Okay, now watched, this could be creepy, or it could be something about safety, right? I know you, I've watched you, I've seen you all the time. I know my mighty sway. Sway is power. I know my magic power. So again, notice you got again this confidence here of the I know my power, I know what I can do to drive thy griefs away. Right? Now this is why I think it's a poem about death, because the word grief is always associated with death, sadness or death. To drive, the word drive means to force. So again, this is why I think it's about somebody who's gone through a difficult situation, right? The sun going down, somebody's day ending, someone's life ending. This idea about grief. Okay, turn over please, last bit. Few hearts to mortals given, on earth so wildly pine. Now circle pine please. Pine is almost like to desperately want something. If you pine after something, it's like you desperately desire it. So there are very few people, so few hearts to mortals. So mortals are any non-gods, right? So humans. So there are few hearts to mortals given that pine. So you have a kind of a rare, I'm going to put here, a rare emotion. That you are kind of connected with the world, that you kind of see the beauty of things. Few hearts to mortals given, on earth so wildly pine, yet none would ask a heaven more like this earth than thine. So again, this idea that nature is like heaven. So rather than waiting to die, you can actually live in heaven by being with nature. So again, this is another idea that sort of God is everywhere, or as we've said, this idea of what we call pantheism, that God is everywhere. Okay. Final one. Now again, we spoke about this before. All of the previous ones go A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. This one is all the same, right? Thee, be, thee, me. Now we call this, it's very rare in poetry, this is what we call a rhyming quad druplet. Right? Like a triplet, couplet, this is a quadruplet. Right? A rhyming quadruplet. So 4 lines of rhyme. Now, if ever you find this, we are talking about connection. All of these lines go together. So the poem ends with connection. The whole way through it's about disconnection, and it ends with connection. Final bit. Let my winds caress thee. Okay, caress is to kind of soothe, like to stroke, to like reassure. Then let my winds caress thee. Thy comrade, right, let's just circle this one here please, or square it off. Now a comrade is quite an interesting word, because a comrade is often quite a military word. A comrade is somebody that you fight with. So I'm going to put here, someone that you fight with. Thy comrade, let me be, since naught besides can bless thee, return and dwell with me. Now this bit here is a little bit complex, right? So naught beside, so that means nothing else can bless thee. Now to be blessed is to be linked with God. So there's nothing else. It's a bit brutal actually. It says that you've got no other choice, right? What are you going to do? You either just languish in pain and suffering, or you come with me, right? Come with me and let me help you. Let me sort of restore your spirit. Return. So again, return is the idea of to come back. So in other words, it's like to find yourself again. And dwell with me. So again, dwell is to live. Now the me, circle the me please, final note for this. So the me is kind of the question mark here. And I think the point of the poem is, it's very ambiguous who the me is. The me could be God, right? The me could be nature, right? The me could simply be another person. It could be any of those things, right? But there's an idea here, and I think it's quite a positive poem. The idea is that throughout life, for any reasons, maybe it's death, maybe it's another reason, people often lose their spirituality, they lose their hope. And what this poem argues is that no matter how lost you get, how difficult life can become, you can always find something to live for. So I'm going to put here, to me it's a very positive poem. It's about the idea there is always hope, okay, and there is always something to live for. Okay, there you go. Right, thank you for